What if I asked you a question? Which game is better, Fortnite or PUBG? What would your answer be? And what if I then asked you the question, why does it matter? Ever since Fortnite was released, there's been a constant online rivalry between fans of both games. Die-hard Fortnite players who don't want anything bad said against their game, and PUBG players, maybe angry that their virtual crown has been lost, are quick to remind Fortnite players that their game was the first to smash player records. Of course, not every player thinks like this, and some people don't even care, but why does there even need to be a them versus us mentality here in the first place? Why does someone have to prefer PUBG over Fortnite or vice versa? I don't think that rivalry needs to exist. I enjoy playing both of these games, and often for different reasons and experiences. I don't really read too much into what game is the most popular out of the two, or what other people are saying. If I enjoy a game, then I'm going to play it, and I'm sure that that's the same for most people. I'd say that right now I'm probably playing a bit more Fortnite, but I still do play PUBG regularly too. Yet every time I post a Fortnite or a PUBG video, straight away there's always people in the comments claiming that the other game is awful and this one is better, or stop posting this content, post PUBG, stop posting PUBG, post Fortnite. I just can't seem to get away from it. And fans of both games seem to take comments or opinions about their game of choice very personal. Although this is the internet, so you do have to take what everyone says with a pinch of salt. I just find the mentality of the competition between these two games quite interesting. It's not just Fortnite and PUBG though, of course. Gamers are always pitting two games against each other for as long as I can remember. Unreal Tournament versus Quake 3, for example. Massive rivalry back in the day. But I'd say that they were much more similar games than Fortnite and PUBG. FIFA versus PES. PES used to be quite dominant, but recently FIFA, for the last 5 or so years, has taken the crown. What about COD versus Battlefield as another big example? Those two games in particular have had a sort of rivalry for quite a few years now, but it's not like the developers are going out of their way to create a rivalry of sorts. The gamers, the fans, are doing that themselves. Don't get me wrong, deep down, both developers, of course, I think, would want their game to be the biggest and the most popular because they want to be successful. But it's gamers and the fans that will defend their games if anyone tries to take aim. I guess another great rivalry in the gaming industry is Xbox and PlayStation. And this is an interesting one because you've got two companies that are in fact directly competing against each other for market share and other things. But in truth, there is room for both consoles on the market. I'd say that most people, if they're into multiplayer and don't like PC gaming, buy whichever console that their friends are getting or already have so they can play with their mates. If all of your friends are on Xbox, chances are that you're going to buy an Xbox. Same for PlayStation. Some exclusive games though do make a big difference. Even still, some people feel the need to claim their console is the best, even though it makes no difference to anyone's gaming experience as long as they're playing with friends. You can sit there and be an Xbox guy who only ever buys Xbox consoles and hates on PlayStation, but then you'd miss out on a load of great exclusive games like The Last of Us, God of War and Horizon, to name a few. In the case of Fortnite and Battlegrounds, I think that they are competing against each other. These two games are the gold standard of Battle Royale games at the moment, with huge followings and player numbers, so it's impossible to not be taking players off each other, I think, because I know so many people who play both, but there is plenty of space for both of these games in the gaming industry because they offer very different experiences. As I said, when I do videos or when I'm streaming either game, I will always get people coming into the video comments or the chat and saying, Jack, Fortnite or PUBG? Decide right now, which one do you like? But you know what? Why can't I have both? Well, I can. Contrary to popular belief, you don't have to prefer one game over the other or even take virtual sides. You can just play whatever you feel like in the moment. We're talking about two different games here. Sure, they're both similar in the sense that they're both battle royale games at their core, with a circle that gets smaller 100 players and it forces all the players together. You have to loot weapons and items when you hit the ground after you jump out of an airplane or a bus. And then the last player or squad are crowned the winners. Beyond that though, the design and concept of both games are massively different, and the games play out very differently too. You get massively varying experiences from playing 5 games of Fortnite to playing 5 games of PUBG. I think it's fair to say too that Fortnite caters for a younger audience compared to PUBG. That's not to say that older people can't or don't play it, but its art style, the cosmetic items, player outfits and emotes, and the free-to-play model definitely lend themselves towards a younger market for the most part. PUBG, on the other hand, I don't think it has as much power to pull in a younger audience. It's arguably more of a mature game that's based more in reality and more immersive. While the shooting mechanics of Fortnite of course take skill, it's really the building that sets it apart from its BR competition. Being able to not only destroy most of the items and cover on the map, as well as being able to build your own cover in the form of ramps, floors and walls, just completely changes how each engagement can play out, regardless of what part of the map that you're fighting on. And I've said this before, but in Fortnite I think you could be a less skilled aimer than your opponent, but if you're a better and quicker builder in that 1v1 or that engagement, then you can still come out on top. It really does make that much of a difference. There's definitely something of an unknown in each engagement, especially in squads, which means that you really need to keep on your toes. Combine that with the arcade nature of the game, so players can jump and shoot, still remain accurate, they can bounce around with impulse grenades, ride rockets, use jump pads, the list goes on, and it just makes for a vastly different and sometimes unpredictable experience. Sometimes though, you know what, I fancy something a bit more grounded, slower paced, something a bit more linear. Imagine that you have an enemy player pinned in behind a piece of cover, let's say a shed or a garage. In PUBG, assuming you've got all of the angles covered, you know that that player can't get away. You've got a certain peace of mind that you know in your head the options that that player has to take. If they move, they can only go to certain areas. If they fight, they're going to have to face me head on. In Fortnite, you don't really get that luxury. That player could build up, ramp out, they could have a explode, a jump pad. Having someone pinned behind cover in Fortnite really means nothing, but in PUBG, it means everything. That works both ways though. If you're stuck behind cover and you've got an enemy or enemies pinning you down, then your options are massively limited in PUBG on how you can escape, whereas in Fortnite, you've got at least a fighting chance. You could argue that PUBG forces you to play the zone in a smart way and really think about your movement, your next moves and placement, but then even with fantastic foresight, you could still get caught out by a bad zone movement. In Fortnite, I really don't think that you need to worry about the zone placement as much because you know that you can just build cover when you get there if you need to, and the map is much smaller, so there's never really that far to run. And whilst I like both of these games, I think they do certain mechanics better than the other. One thing that I think Fortnite has over PUBG is the mid-game. For the most part, you see way more players in Fortnite than you do in PUBG, just because a ton of players in PUBG tend to die earlier, and of course the Fortnite map is a lot smaller. Bluehole, the devs of PUBG, are trying to address this with a more action-packed map that's recently been tested on their experimental test server titled Savage. And I have to say, for the most part, it does feel more action-packed throughout the entirety of the game, although you do from time to time get dry spells. Fortnite, however, are dealing with their own issues in that regard. Since the introduction of tilted towers, I feel that way more players die early on now than they ever used to. It's got to a point where it feels like something has to be done about it, and the rumours are that a big meteor or alien invasion will strike tilted towers and it will be replaced with something else. I reckon it could even be a new map entirely, but we'll see. And the challenges that Fortnite have too, they encourage players to go to certain areas of the map to complete the challenges, so that helps to split up everyone too. The point I'm making here is that both of these games offer very different experiences, and you can play them both very differently. I love Fortnite, but it's also nice to go back and play PUBG too, because it just gives you a more realistic, tactical experience, and it can be just as fun. It really depends on what type of gameplay I'm feeling like at that moment. And you know what? Competition is great for the gaming industry. Fortnite has come into the gaming scene at a rapid pace, and it hasn't stopped sprinting, and it's been so successful. The updates are just so frequent and exceptional, and I think that it's forcing Bluehole to really take it up a gear with their own game to try and keep players invested, and that's fantastic. There's room in the industry for both games, and providing that they keep updating, I think that they can push themselves nicely along. Rumours are that Massive, the creators of The Division, are potentially working on a BR game for The Division 2, and seemingly every man and his dog is trying to take advantage of the BR hype. Only the best games are going to stand out and get played though. Right now, the two best BR games are Fortnite and PUBG, but all it takes is another game to come along with a twist on the genre, and I think we could be hyping that up in 12 months' time instead. It is possible to like both Fortnite and Battlegrounds and play them regularly. I do, and if you like one more than the other, then you don't have to badmouth the other people who like it or the game itself. Everyone has different tastes at the end of the day. And that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you did like it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.